There are many examples I'm sure you've heard or our audience has seen where things just aren't working correctly. It took the first 6 months to figure out up and down and left and right and to really understand what it meant to be a business. Just because your symptoms say why things are slow, you think things are slow, the cobwebs don't go away.
You're running your own consulting, financial advisor, accounting firm, and you're trying to figure out how to grow, hire, price, and not lose your mind in the process. You're in the right place. I'm Delmarie Salcedo. Welcome to the Consulting Engine. Today I'm sitting down with Brian Lemmings, the founder of 80-10-10, a consulting firm that specialized in connecting strategy to execution through PMO transformation. Brian, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you on.
Hey, Demar, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to our conversation today.
So for those who aren't familiar with your business, what does 80-10-10 do? Who do you do it for? How did it come to exist?
Yeah, so 80-10-10, I started about a year ago, about 14, 15 months ago. Prior to starting my own business, I was in corporate, so corporate IT. Definitely not a technologist, but I do understand how to pull different people together to make sure that whatever the processes are, whatever the technology system is, are moved the right direction or being fully implemented. So 80-10-10 focuses specifically within project delivery. There are many examples I'm sure you've heard or our audience has seen where things just aren't working correctly, whether that is implementation of a internal project, whether that is decision drag there from a project management perspective, who is supposed to be making the decisions. So just as some easy examples, I go into organizations that are ready to change. They recognize that they have a problem. They recognize that they're losing money, losing time, and burning their PMs out. So sort of burning the project managers out. So I go in and we take a look at what the system is designed to do and what is maybe designed to to be set up in a best case. And that could be from redesigning the entire project delivery system from intake to execution through delivery at the end, which would be more along the lines of impact and value delivery. Or it could just be my project managers or my BAs need to really have some additional knowledge and additional experience. So let's look at it from an enablement perspective. So it could be that as well. So it runs the gambit from creating something from scratch, brand new PMO, implementing a new tool, to really getting down to the roles and the actual delivery people being better trained, or just understanding better what their role is going to be.
Got it. So when did the business start to feel like a real business as opposed to a side hustle or something that you were trying to figure out?
So I would say probably 8 months ago. So I've been in business, as I said, for about 15 months. It took the first 6 months to figure out up and down and left and right and to really understand what it meant to be a business. I did lots of sort of one-off sort of advisory phone calls during that 6 month time period. But I still was trying to figure out which direction I wanted to go in. And then I was able to speak with some friends who, from a network perspective, got me really involved in a better engagement that was really sort of, I'll say, lit my fire. So I really understood, it helped me understand, okay, this is the direction I wanted to go in. So that large 6 month engagement was the first time, and that finished in March. So the July, August, September, so end of last summer, beginning of the fall. It took 6 months, 7 months to really understand and feel comfortable to say, yep, I own a business versus I'm helping people out on the side here, or that sort of hobby mindset for sure.
Got it. So now when you take on a new client, what does the first time period look like when you're onboarding them? How do you kind of coordinate things? How do you get them into the fold and comfortable?
I'm working on to get that part better, but today what that looks like is every engagement has a 30-day window, which is sort of that discovery window. So we've done an assessment. We understand that you are wanting to make these changes, what changes you think need to be done, right? Those are often not the same that have to be done. So it's understanding and going in and doing sort of that discovery phase work to go, okay, here are your core problems. I have a buddy that wrote a book called Kill the Spider. And that I take this sort of mindset into these projects, that just because your symptoms say why things are slow, you think things are slow, the cobwebs don't go away. Those common pain points don't go into actually go into that root cause and decide this is what we really have to go after. It's not a decision. It's not a decision issue from a workflow perspective. The person you have in place to do the decision is not really ready to do that or doesn't understand what they're supposed to be doing. So rather than trying to fix the email, fix the workflow, set up meetings every week, let's really understand what does that core problem look like. So I like to go in and try to define the core challenges and then let the stakeholder of that engagement to decide, okay, here are these four things, let's go after these top two. I know about these others, or I don't know about these others quite yet, but I do know we can take these as that low-hanging fruit, go after those, win those, and then use that traction and that momentum to go around with the rest of the project. But everything starts from that 30 days, whether that's a 90-day engagement or 6-month engagement there, just to help set the stage and set the foundation that we all agree that we're going after the right stuff during that time period.
I love what you said in the analogy about the spiders and the cobwebs, and you're so right. There's always often a gap between what you think needs to be done, what the actual problem is, and what the real
Yeah.
solve needs to be.
Yeah.
So as you think about all of your different types of engagements between your kind of 90 days, 6 month, whatnot, what's the most common kind of slow down part between starting an engagement and delivering an outcome where you feel like things kind of slow down with your clients, or maybe you deliberately slow things down as you're going through delivery?
What I've seen most recently is the slowdown time period of once we get everything sort of defined, here's the discovery has been completed, and now we're taking the action, we're executing on that plan. It's the input from the client and understanding, and this may just be a Brian thing that Brian has to get better at doing, but it's the here's the direction, here's where we're going, here's some deliverables. It's okay, take a look, get back, get some feedback. I try to take a very iterative approach to what is going, because I can sit and create processes and create files and documents for day. That's the easy part. But it doesn't make any sense if you're not taking a look at it. So it's that connection piece that I know you're working on 1,000 other things. You've brought me in to do this. So we need to make sure that we're aligned from a communication perspective of, okay, if we give out daily touch points can be difficult to be long lasting, but we can at least do a weekly touch point. Okay, here's where we are. Have you seen it? Have you looked at it? Defining that piece. I'd like to get to a point where I can provide sort of a client, more of a client structure, not necessarily a folder structure, but a portal perspective to sort of dump documents in the portal. I see there's good parts to that and there's bad parts depending on the size of the organization. I know that in my previous world, we were less likely to use a vendor's portal system and to come into our system so we can better control the data in that piece. But I do want to offer that as a capability. So that when we're doing that, there's a one hand to shake or one throat to choke, depending on the direction you want to go after with that. So from a documentation perspective, a project management perspective, risks, so that that entire engagement structure is set up front. And the biggest hurdle has been I know you're working on 15 things, but you said this was important. Let's make sure we have this, and then I'm engaging with that stakeholder correctly for them. And then if there's issues in timing, that we're very clear in that this has an end date. We're working towards this end date. If we need to push that off, that's fine. We just need to communicate that up as well as communicate it out and around as we're going through there.
Got it. So it sounds like you really zeroed in on focus and structure as two areas that you're constantly noodling with clients. I want to touch on both of them. Let's start with structure. So you mentioned there's kind of good things and bad things to having some sort of portal or kind of a centralized location. Talk me through both. What are the pros and cons there?
The easiest pro to me, from my perspective, right, is I know I need to go one place to either update where we are, to put a document in its place, so that it can then be taken and can be reviewed. So from a structure perspective, it's helpful for me and for my brain to go, here are the 5 different pathways. I know that pathway A leads down this specific perspective, and it may provide all the details they need from a status. And from a risk perspective. And then this other pathway looks at from a documentation perspective. So there's defined pathways that are there to do that. For my brain, that's very helpful. Structure is something that I have set priorities on, that I've set how I do things, so optimizing my operations from that as well. So for me, the structure is really important. On the end user side, I have found that that structure is important, but it has to fit inside what they're used to doing, right? If we create a structure that you aren't used to working in, but I'm used to working in, I'm going to assume that it's good and that it works for you. That works for you because it worked for me. But from your end, from an engagement perspective, if you have to go to Box or Dropbox or whatever this other Teams or Slack, whatever that other place is, and that's not a common place for you to go in, it can lead to issues in engagement, issues in satisfaction, right? And it can slow things down. So where I will sell the structure internally, I know this is important to do it. I have to be flexible in understanding how that gets brought into each of the different clients that I'm speaking with.
That makes sense. And it's good that you're really thinking about meeting the client where they are and what that path of least resistance is. So that's the kind of highest chance of adoption, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, if I just to carry that on just a bit, if
Yeah.
I get in their way and I slow things down, it hurts all of us, right? And so to your point of the path of least resistance, if I can understand what's going to work, does it make sense for you guys to have a folder, or do you need to get access for me into your system, and I just change where my upload go and set up a similar structure there? That's an easy pathway for me to go after. I'll be the flexible one for that because I don't want to be in somebody's way. Again, I'm coming in knowing I'm focusing on one thing, where I'm coming into their world where they have that 15,000 other things they have to get done. So it behooves me to be flexible and from a customer perspective from a hospitality perspective, right? Just to go after that.
Let's talk about focus. What are some of the things that you've found, different tactics that you've tried to get your clients to focus? Like you've said, they've often got 15 different things going on. How do you get them to kind of prioritize the work or give it the space that it deserves?
This is a work in progress for that. Generally, by defining my client and really making sure that the clients want to get that done, right? They understand they have the problem, but they want to take the action to resolve that. That helps with the focus. So if I'm going into, I don't want to go into a company where the boss 2 levels up understands that there's an issue, but it has so much chaos in between those 2 different levels that they can't get anything done. Or I get dumped onto a person that is the client touch point, right? That says, this is one of 15 things I have to do. I don't really understand why we're being told to do this. They may own that process as it is. And so I want to make sure that from a focus perspective, at the bare minimum, when I'm walking in the door, that from the top down of that pathway, it may not be everybody, right? But of that pathway, at least, that there's instructions that we're all on the same team. We're all going after this one direction together. And I want to make sure that I'm setting things up that fit for you. So take that thoughtful approach and how that's being done. So the very first part is understanding from just at the high level engagement perspective, this is, are we good with this? Like, are we going the right direction? Do you want to make these changes? And I've had the conversation with people that say, this is not a priority for me. Can we put this off for 6 weeks? We can sometimes, and we can't other times, right? Just depending on what that looks like. Focus also is important because I want to start on the far right, get to the very end. I want to work backwards, right? To make sure we have this direction as we're going and keep pointing to the direction we're going. Okay, remember, we're working towards this end goal. This is the direction we're going in, and making sure that we have that group buy-in that we want to get there. And so focus on where we're going, focus on that pre-work, right? And understand that laying that foundation there is just really important for a successful delivery, and so that people adopt to it, and then they adapt to it, and then they can adopt it into their own path. Because I can build something you want all day long, But if you don't like it and if you don't understand why we're doing it, right? I'm a big why guy. I asked why probably more than any other question growing up. And so why we do something, it helps make the connections to me to why I want to go ahead and help in moving it forward.
That's great. And you're totally right that getting folks to have buy-in and meeting them where they are again really goes a long way. And it sounds like, even just over the past 14 months, you've been able to find tactics that work and you're able to create that stickiness with the client. So as you look forward into the next 3 years, let's say, how does 80-10-10 look different than it is today? What are your kind of big goals for where you want to get to?
That's a great question. Where I want 80-10-10 to be in 3 years is to have the area, for me personally, it is to be in a position to where what is hard for me today is not hard for me then. Like that I've understood, I've conquered that or adapted to it, and been able to move ahead, um, and really I'm growing at the pace that I want to grow at, right? Growing at not from the pressure of the world around me, but to make sure this is the goal, the financial goal, this is the time goal, this is the relationship goal, like hitting all of those, checking all those boxes,
Mm-hmm.
that I, if I'm looking 3 years out, is working backwards to get, like I just said, working backwards to get there and setting up the structure and the focus in place to hit those goals, which would be again hitting the finance goals of where I want to be. I have two kids in college, almost two kids in college, and one that's going into high school. So in 3 years, she'll be a junior in high school, and I want to be as present as I am today in 3 years. Right, I don't want to be traveling as frequently as I've done in the past, or just sort of offline from my family and be more online with the family. Looking 3 years ahead. So I'm looking forward to serving different clients. Looking forward to seeing what is the world going to look like in 3 years from it. I'm in the PMO space, but I come in through the CIO, so I come in through the technology team. So what is that even going to look like in 3 years from a technology operational optimization piece to it? That I leave really open, and I focus more on the soft things of relationships, right?
Yeah.
And making sure there's time and a time for those and time to grow with those.
So as you think about those things, what are the things you feel like you've got to get right in order to get there? Or maybe the things that are taking up the most headspace right now that you've got to solve so you can get there?
Yeah. The biggest two things are the areas that I have not had to deal with until I started my own business, which is purely the marketing and purely the sales piece. I have been an entrepreneur in many different companies, come in and build a PMO for them, build a service management delivery system for them. But this is the first I'm doing it on my own and on my nickel, right? So I'm having to go and understand, really look at the foundational pieces of marketing and of sales. So part of that 3 years is hopefully I'm better than I am now for those pieces. But learning, and that's the biggest headache for me, and what keeps me awake at night is, am I talking to the right people? Am I in front of the right company size? Really define what that niche is, and I have these other things I think I want to do, and just prioritizing, understanding. Put that on the whiteboard, come back to it, but we need to focus on getting these three things done today, so we can get them ready for 26 and then prepare for 27. So looking at 3 years, I'm super excited to get there. I've already been spoiled enough to not want to go back to corporate, to stay in this business building as it is. I enjoy every part of it, and I hate every part of it at the exact same time, right? And so
Yeah.
it's been it's the best of times and it's the worst of times, right? It's that whole balance, and that integration of life with that is has been a learning curve for me.
Definitely. So, what are the things that you've tried in order to get sales and marketing to work for you?
I have tried, I would say everything, but it's not. It's everything to me, which is I do a lot of work in LinkedIn. I post excuse me, very frequently in LinkedIn. I am trying to. I've taken away sort of the, let's not focus on cold outreach. Let's focus on that again, the relational. and looking at my network and understanding, what are the needs within my network and even that extended network of my network. I
Mhm.
think I've heard before that all the jobs you ever need are within your network already. So I'm leaning into that more, but I am providing a proof of life through LinkedIn. It's led to some really great conversations with some really big companies I thought would be able to have. And so I'm excited about that point. So LinkedIn has been big. I've not quite tackled from a self fear perspective. Do I go into what other social medias do I go after? Right? Do I like check after Facebook or Instagram for the Facebook for the audience that's there, and then I don't really have a need to go into TikTok or to Instagram. That's not typically the audience I'm going after, but I have kids that age, so sometimes I want to do it just to embarrass them. I may do that way. But really, it's focusing on really understanding where does my niche sit? Like, where are they listening? Where are they looking for these problems? Where are they feeling I heard about this gal or heard about this guy that they're doing these three things. Do we need to do having those conversations and starting those off? I'm getting in front of people on podcasts. I am doing different speaking engagements. I'm doing a webinar for a company in a few weeks. So I'm getting it from a webinar perspective. I've hosted a couple of webinars. So I'm trying to get out there the best I can. And right now, it's going well. Nothing, to be very honest, nothing has come from it other than really great connections, really great network opportunities, really great practice to go after the direction I'm going in and who 80-10-10 is. And so I count those as wins. My pocketbook needs some additional help with it, but we're going that way. So I'm growing and learning, which is all I can really go after right now.
Got it. And so you mentioned a lot of the different digital marketing tools,
Yeah.
but I got to ask, what about AI? Is there any AI tools that you use to deliver your work today or to help you with the operations of the business?
AI from an overall technology perspective, I view AI as just it's a tool that right now has everybody's attention. Like data did
Hmm.
a few years ago, the cloud did sooner than or more recent than that, and now AI is sort of in that same bucket. I've got the normal tools I think most business owners have looking at whether that's through Claude or whether that's through OpenAI or Perplexity. So I'm leveraging those as a thinking tool, leveraging those for how can I better word this type tool. It is not being, I'm not using it yet from an operational perspective. I'm looking at how to best do that. I've just but not pulled the trigger on it yet. I'm not real happy with where I'm going as I'm learning to do that, like everybody else is out there. So AI is definitely a technology that we need to hold on to and need to use. But I think for me, it is leveraging the tools for what they're used for and where
Hmm.
I'm strong in them today, and then to learn more, to spend the time, whether that's an hour a week to learn, okay, what else can these tools do, or what other tools are out there that I can help either introduce to potential clients or I can leverage for them for myself. A lot of the AI tools that are in the project management world are already being associated with tools that exist, right? So whether that is AI within ServiceNow, from within their SPM tool, the strategic project management or portfolio management tool, or whether that is within Smartsheet, right? So tools that exist that are bolting on AI or adding it as a not an AI first tool, but there's some really great AI first tools that are out there that are beginning to break into the market from a project delivery perspective, which are really interesting to see what it is. I know there's some project managers I see on LinkedIn that they're worried that their jobs are going to be taken because of AI. And project management is such a human centered field that it can take away some of the stuff that meeting notes, right? And risk logs, right? Identifying those. It can take the more admin focused tasks. And I don't really like that word, but I don't know if there's a better word for it, but sort of that associate or admin of a junior level tasks to learn those tools. It can take some of those pieces off the plate of PMs, but PMs are here to stay. PMOs are here to stay. They may have some different titles, and that's a whole
Mm.
different conversation we can have. But they're here to stay because it's a human first, a human centered. I was using the word yesterday, a human centered a project operational mindset or operational system, right? So It's the human has to stay in the loop, and project
Yeah.
management specifically, they're going to. Then AI may be part of the team, but it will never be the team itself.
So, are you finding that you're having these types of AI discussions with your clients, whether they're evaluating the AI portion of an existing tool like ServiceNow you mentioned, or trying to branch out, or trying to figure out, to your point, what aspects of PMO do they start to think about AI for versus what needs to be AI plus a human versus what is truly human centric?
I'm beginning to have those conversations. I was at a event this last week that was in Atlanta AI Week, and it was 100% AI focused, right? So everybody there was either using AI for the last 10, 15 years, or they were really leveraging the agentic components that we have today. But every single project that they talked about was, this is only successful if you understand why you're doing it, if
Mm-hmm.
there's buy-in from the company. All that project management PMO world of make sure your intake is right, your prioritization is right. Do you have the capacity and capability? All those early questions keep coming back to that. And so if we can get that piece, which is all human in the loop, right? It's all human centered information. It definitely can use and leverage AIs to grab information from other places, but it all comes from the business. It all comes from technology teams, and those are people that help them do that. And so that was the biggest takeaway for me from the AI was no matter what the technology is, if we the execution issues are always process and people and technology, right? Those are your common pieces to it. If we get that order incorrectly and drive from technology, and we've not fixed the processes, defined the processes, understand what they even were trying to do, the what and the how of a project, is going to fail. And so understanding that AI is a tool in your toolbox is great. Understanding that AI may be, there's always a rumor or the rumblings that AI will become an employee, an agent will become an employee of yours. And so you'll leverage it that way. There will be some interesting use cases coming up, I'm sure, of how that can work. It's not going to work for all companies, and it's not going to work for all PMOs, just like anything else, right? We've got choices from Microsoft products to Google products to open text products. Right? There's lots of technology out there. And so I think AI is going to sort of fall into that same category of what's the best use case for this AI, and or from a resource perspective, from a human perspective, how do we best leverage that tool to get better in where we are? So just like electricity, AI is here. It's going to get better. It's going to get worse for some things. And
Yeah.
it's just that balance. How do we leverage it?
Yeah. No, I love that you said that. It's the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Uh,
There's some, certain fundamental questions about every role, but definitely PMO where you're right, you're right. It doesn't matter the technology. It really is about those kind of central questions and how companies choose to answer them, execute them, and continually kind of anchor to them.
if they don't, what happens? It fails. The
That's
number
right.
that gets thrown around I heard it all last week. 90% of AI projects fail. Take a step back. 85 or 88% of all projects fail. Every single one of those, one, how do you define failure? What does that actually mean? Take that away. It all goes back to that core piece of what was the business trying to do, right? What was the problem? What, again, spiders and cobwebs, right? What is the spider you're trying to kill? Let's look at how that is best done. When we can define a process to look at that intake, prioritization, strategic alignment, if we can look at that process and define that better, and the business understands, I spent most of the time in the IT world. If the business understands it's not an IT project, it's a business project with an IT component to it, a technology component to it. And if the technology teams can understand that as well, that you may have this new tool, but just because you have a tool, don't go look for a problem to solve, right? Understanding where that is, and we're trying to fix these challenges, trying to understand uh, what we're going after. If we once we can
Mm-hmm.
define that, everything else becomes an easier piece because you have that north star to keep pointing back to. This is truth. This is success. This is how we know we're doing it, and then the execution hopefully goes easier, and then at the very end, the part that many businesses are missing is that value realization, that impact realization of that project, the benefit realization piece. That part is missed so often because there's not a good front end to it, and so it
Yeah.
just sort of drops off and it just dies. And people will, I've wasted $100 million this year or the last 10 years on projects, and all of them have not been any good at all. Well, it's because we didn't do that last part to go back and look at it and go, what did we actually get from it? And then how do we work and make that better for this next project as we go ahead with it?
Yep, absolutely. It's all about the fundamentals and the principles. If you think about your journey over the past year and a half and all of the things you've been talking about, it's clearly a reflection of some of the lessons learned. Is there any sort of key message that really rises to you in terms of, what do you wish somebody had told you earlier when you started this journey or as you're trying to scale?
I think the biggest sort of takeaway or maybe lessons learned to keep it in vein of project management, the biggest lessons learned is that's a great question. I think there's about so many sort of bouncing ideas sort of bouncing around in my head. I think the one of the biggest takeaways and lessons learned that I have is there are there's enough work for everybody, right? There's an abundance mindset that I try to keep instead of a scarcity mindset that
Mm,
I give lots of information away for free because it's there and people want to be better and I want to help them, whatever that means to be better. And so I think the biggest shift I had was understanding that people that are, whether it's the big four, right, from a consulting perspective, or just here in Atlanta, we have a number of project management consulting or just consulting, business consulting offices. None of them are my competitors, right? I have to
mhm.
keep that mindset, but if not, I get sort of stuck behind the how am I ever going to do this? And oh, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm never going to reach it. Like you sort of get stuck in that negative mindset and that fixed mindset. So I try to keep that. I try to keep, and I'm getting better and worse depending on the day. That mindset of abundance mindset. There's enough work for everybody that's out there, and when I'm looking into 26 and I have these goals I want to hit, and I've not signed these two clients yet. It's the take a deep breath, keep working towards those, but also understand that there's enough work out there that's for everybody who wants to start their own job, right? We are not in a limited resource and limited capacity at any measure around the world. The biggest takeaway is to really keep my head up, right, and to understand and to believe that, not just to say it, but to actually believe that I am here to help, I'm here to guide, and there's plenty of time and there's plenty of companies, organizations that are looking for that work because I'll tell you, being from a small organization, 25 to 50 people up to a 10,000 person organization, their problems were not, they weren't any different. They're the same problems that small business had that the large enterprises were having.
Hmm.
How it scaled, the political part to it, right? All the political components to it, and all the sort of potential downplaying of importance, whining, we don't have enough, we've got enough to do. Let's just focus on what we're doing. Let's prioritize that and move on. There's lots of stuff out there for people to do.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely words to live by. Well, I really appreciate you being on here, Brian, and sharing the insights and for our audience. Before we leave, where can people find you or learn more about 80-10-10 if something today you said resonated?
Yeah, the easiest, I'm not real smart, so I made it easy for myself, is brianlemmings.com. It's my name. That's my webpage. And then if you go into LinkedIn and put Brian Lemmings in, I am probably the only one that's there. So two really easy spots are LinkedIn, again, Brian Lemmings or brianlemmings.com. Those are the two biggest spots for me. And hopefully you'll see me within wherever you listen to podcasts around the world, you get to hear me there as well.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on our show. As for the audience, if you got something useful today on this episode, make sure to like it, share it with someone who's in the middle of building their own firm. Until next time, this is a wrap of the Consulting Engine. I'm Del Marie Salcedo. See you next episode.